Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Fitter and Faster Coach's Corner. As always, I am your host, Mike Murray. Today, I am joined by a fellow ASCA board member, Mackenzie Novell. And Mackenzie, we are so thrilled that the Novells are playing a role at ASCA, and we are so thrilled to have you and your family of coaches as part of our board. Even though you are the only one on our board in your family becomes a part of ASCA, as you know. We are thrilled to have you. You have been making huge waves, especially over the last 2 or 3 months, generating all kinds of interests. People are wondering, what is Mackenzie Novell doing at FAST, and how is she getting those age groupers so motivated to continue to swim so well and most importantly, enjoy the sport? So welcome to Coach's Corner.
Thank you. It's quite the intro. That's a lot to live up to right there.
Well, you're a lot to live up to. When you give talks at ASCA, nobody wants to follow you because either the crowd leaves because they've heard what they wanted to hear from you, or they're asking us, hey, when's the next time Mackenzie's going out to do a talk? So why don't you tell us a little bit about the talk you gave at the ASCA World Clinic in Orlando, and then we'll expand from there.
Okay, perfect. I've spent a year on the ASCA board, and I kind of got roped into it. I don't want to say roped into it, but I kind of fell backwards into it. A couple people
As one does.
Yeah, had mentioned my name, and one thing led to the next. I was pregnant at the time and thought, I don't know about this, but I made the video and I got the votes, and here I am. So I've been on the board for a year, and I think historically they haven't had a ton of 8 and under coaches potentially on the board, or even like mom part-time coaches. So I was intimidated at first, but my husband, who's the head coach of our team, reminded me that my voice actually represents like a pretty large group of coaches. So that gave me some confidence, and it kind of rolled through the year. And then they asked me to speak at ASCA, and specifically about 8 and under. And I currently coach 8 and unders, but I've coached every age group from learn to swim all the way up to Division 1. So 8 and unders, though, is where my heart totally is just so fulfilled. So it was easy to say yes to doing the talk. But again, I was super nervous because I've never given a talk, and I've never shared what I do outside of just like our staff or talking with people at swim meets. So I thought, what do these people want to hear? And again, my husband kind of swooped in and helped me out with his awesome, just like leadership and encouragement. And we got a babysitter, we went to a brewery, we got a beer, we sat down, and we're like, what do we need to tell the people about 8 and unders? So we sat there for 2 hours and kind of mapped out some things we thought were important. And it led us to this talk that we kind of decided to call the 8 and under Ascent. Because one of the things I think is the most important about coaching 8 and unders is figuring out what their Everest is going to be. So figuring out, for some of them, it's to do all legal strokes. For some of them, though, it's to learn to put their fins on by themselves, or just to be confident to walk from the car to in the bleachers, to putting their stuff out, following direction, getting on deck, without a parent there to help. So it's going to be different for everybody, but I find that when you can pinpoint what their most important skill needs to be to make swimming more fun and more confident, if you can hash some of those things out with them, you're going to build confidence, kind of like how I did over the year. You're going to build confidence in kind of layering those skills. And before you know it, these little kids are like, they don't want their parents to come in. They want to just come in and play with their friends, where maybe on the first day they were like still clinging onto mom's leg. So the talk was really around that. And they put me in the back of the exhibit hall because we weren't sure how many people were going to come. It actually ended up being this huge blessing in disguise because we got foot traffic. So before we knew it, we had standing room only, and it was so fun to see people nodding their heads and smiling and laughing. And kind of sharing in what the struggles and the joys of being an 8 and under coach.
Oh, Mackenzie, I love it. And if you were there in person, you could see people were taking feverish notes on your presentation. And my mom used to say all the time, she was a teacher for 25 years. She used to say all the time that the pre-kindergarten, kindergarten, and first grade teachers were the gatekeepers to education, right? Those are the first teachers that we all remember that we had, right? That really great teacher who kind of introduced you to your school, showed you what a routine was, how to
Mhm.
acclimate to a new environment. And 8 and under coaches are really those people in our sport, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that a lot of times teams will put, their youngest coach, their most inexperienced coach, I mean, fill in the blank, really. And I totally understand that, right? The 8 and under group is not always like the money making group. Their dues are typically the least on the team. Their parents are volunteering the least on the big scale of things. And so it's hard to invest time, coaching experience, money, lane space, all these things to an 8 and under group. But um, one thing that, again, not to like toot his horn, I would say this in front of him, but my husband does a great job, and so does our head age group coach, Doug Stone, putting so much value in the not even just the 8 and under, but even like our 10 and under groups. So that really helps pave the path. And I think it helps the parents when they join the team to feel like, okay, this isn't swim lessons. This isn't, you know, my kid's going to get more than just learning how to get across the pool out of this program. So anything that we can do as a team to kind of uplift those coaches, but also I think it falls upon us to really educate them, which is what I've been so excited about. And I was thrilled that my talk went over so well at ASCA because there are so many coaches out there, even like head coaches who are looking at their 8 and under coach thinking like, yeah, there's probably some room to educate them on how to deal with parents because guess what? They're not parents yet. And there's a huge learning curve. Not to say you have to be a parent to be an understanding coach, but there's a lot of links that get put together when you have your own children that are harder to put together when you don't have your own children. So I think that for our team, it's actually kind of fun to be like the mom coach. At first I was dreading it. I'm like, oh, I'm the mom coach. Like nobody likes the mom coach. She's like unreliable. She like has to stay home every once in a while. But the parents of the kids in my group, they're the same way. They're like in the trenches like me. Kids are sick, they can't come to practice. Like carpools fail, dad's on a work trip, things happen. So um it's worked out. It's been really positive to be kind of like the mom coach and turn that into like a way for me to connect with the new families. But I have to learn how to harness that and educate. Not every team is going to have a mom coach with the 8 and under. So, like, how can we get these young 20s or, fresh out of college coaching little kids? Like, how can we kind of connect some of the dots for them too?
I love just hearing the joy that you have talking about your program, right? And you touched on how a lot of times the 10 and under and 8 and under coaches are relatively inexperienced or they're just cutting their teeth in their career of coaching.
Mhm.
One thing that Greg Troy has always said is the most important coaches in USA Swimming are the 10 and under coaches. And so you mentioned finding ways to connect to your parent base. And what you're finding is at your age right now, many of us in our late 30s, early 40s, we have our kids and the people who are populating our team are in our same demographic. So you're finding ways to connect to those moms and dads. The struggle is real in so many households when you have multiple kids and we
Mhm.
have schedules that are so routine. It's okay if you're going to miss a practice or two. You communicate with your parents. How are some of the ways, or what are some of the ways that you've connected with your parents on a more formalized basis on your team?
So we do, the common thread, whether you're brand new on the team or you have, somebody who's training with my husband up at our top level. Our group is called Arete. We send a weekly email. So all the coaches, and it actually starts, this doesn't necessarily fall into parent communication, but the base of it is that every Friday we have a staff meeting. And the staff meeting, we cover shout outs to each other. We cover character shout outs to any kids or volunteers that we've seen. And then we recap our group. So everybody does that from top to bottom. So every coach on our team knows exactly what I'm doing with my little kids. They know what Mike's doing with the big kids, and they know what everybody in between is doing. Um, we then, our head age group coach, Doug, he puts in a recap for us, sends it out to the coaches, and it has things from the meeting, and it has coverage pieces, schedule pieces, swim meet deadlines, everything you could think of that you need to have a full picture of the team. And it's up to the group coaches to read through that and put it into an email that a parent can digest. So putting those top, like, for the parents, it's schedule. It's always schedule up top. First thing, the parents, if they're only going to read your email for 10 seconds, put the schedule at the top. So we put schedule. The next thing that they need to know is swim meet deadlines, like things that are coming up that it's on you. And then after that, we can go into whatever piece that we have. Sometimes it's an educational piece. Most of the time, it's a paragraph about what your swimmer has been doing in practice, maybe talking points for the car ride. Everybody's got their own, piece that they like to throw in. We'll call it Coach's Corner as well. We send those out every Monday. So parents know every Monday. And sometimes, and they're not like earth-shattering emails. Sometimes it's literally the schedule, the deadlines. Thanks for being on fast. See you on deck. It doesn't have to be crazy, but they know that that schedule is going to come to them and they can count on that every Monday. So that's our most like formal common thread throughout the whole team. Beyond that, we started it in COVID, and I'm going to call them, like, we're on the offense. We make calls to the families. So when we have families on the team, and it really, there's no like, you have to call 20 families every week. It's not like that. We have a lot of part-time coaches. We have college kids, we have parents, we have the whole gamut. So it's really just teaching the coaches that being on the offense is always better. And the parent wants to know that you're seeking them out. And if a phone call doesn't work, that's fine. Send them an email, but make them feel like you made a personal connection at some point. The other thing that we do is we arrive at practice 15 minutes early and we stay 15 minutes late to encourage the parents to find us. The parents that communicate better face to face, that's not everybody, but some people, that is their best. That's your chance. So we communicate with them. We'll be on deck. This is where we stand 15 minutes before practice. This is where you can find me 15 minutes after practice. That also puts it on them, like, I'm available. Go ahead. The door is open. Come on in. Don't come in during practice, but you can come in 15 minutes before or after. We have a lobby in our pool. We have an indoor pool, and everybody filters through the lobby, but we can also use kind of this like back door,
Sure.
We try as coaches to not always use that back door. It's super convenient and it's close to the parking lot. And we really, all of us from top to bottom, make an active, you know, gesture to go through the lobby and to not be looking on our phone, not be looking down, be looking up, saying hi. Oh, I saw you the other day. Or like, I saw you doing evaluation. Are you guys in your 2-week trial? So again, just being present in that sense. Sometimes I'll host like once, it hasn't been once a month. It's kind of as needed. I'll host like an open house in the lobby. Typically it's around the start of the season. So
Sure.
from 5 to 6, Coach Mackenzie will be in the lobby with her computer. If you need help going through the website, if you need help learning how to register for a swim meet, if you need help learning how to just register in general,
I
I'll
love
be
that.
there. I have my computer. I'll come show you. Our bookkeeper does that as well. So our bookkeeper is a paid employee of FAST, and he's got a little stand and his kids swim. So when his kids come to the pool, he's got his table, he puts up a, I'm the FAST bookkeeper, come ask me any questions, and he sits there and gets his work done. So there's a lot of ways for us to communicate to parents and meet them where they're at, because not everybody loves weekly emails.
Oh, so true. And I love the fact that you're actively coaching your coaches to engage with parents, right? Parents are our partners in this business. We can't do it without them.
No, no, I mean, USA Swimming in general, like when you look at the whole sport of swimming, like it is all based on volunteer work. And so if you aren't making that connection, you're doing a disservice to not just your team, but the whole sport.
I think we just found the fifth soundbite from this interview so far. So that was fantastic. Really appreciate that. Now, Mackenzie, before we get into some of the X's and O's of coaching 8 and unders, talk to me about those times where you have that 8 and under, it's their first season. And boy, we've got a lot of nerves and a lot of anxiety about trying our first butterfly race or our first breaststroke legal race. How are you coaching them through those moments?
Most of those moments are going to come before we even get to the swim meet. So when you have that swimmer that's nervous or a little more reserved, I don't want to say we've all coached, but we've probably all coached little kids who are just like, whatever, let's go. I did dives yesterday and it was like, if you're ready to go off the block, and half of them are belly flopping. And I'm like, I think we should go from the side. They're like, what? I love the block. Like, they don't care that it's wrong. They think it's awesome. So you can't squash that. You gotta be careful of that. But a lot of those learning pieces, I'm trying to get out of the way in practice. So a couple ways that I'm doing that are I have mock meets each season where we have officials come to practice and they dress in the whole thing. They got the earpiece, the walkie-talkie, the shirt, the whole thing. And it's just parents on our team who are officials that would love to come down on deck and help with the younger kids. And we'll run like a mock swim meet right there in our normal practice time. We'll do a warm up. We'll talk about after warm up, we have team meetings. At the team meeting, this is when we talk about this. We look up at the scoreboard. We look at first call, last call. We run through an entire swim meet. We race. The officials get everybody out. Everybody does a 25 butterfly. The officials will pull out, a common thing, or they'll say lane 2, lane 3, you touched with a single hand, that would be a DQ. Or they might get a group of people together. Okay, everybody here was kicking with their legs apart. So it's important that it comes from the official and that they see the official as just like a fancy teacher, not like the stroke police. I just explained to them like this is their uniform and we have DQ sheets and we pass them around, and the DQ sheets kind of like a report card or a scorecard, and they check off some things that we need to work on. So that's one way, mock meet. The other thing that we will do in practice, we did a showcase, dare I call it a showcase. And I had my beginning of the season parent meeting. So it's during practice. That's another side note. Have parent meetings during practice. The parents' time is already scheduled. Our beginning of the season parent meeting. So I was in the room with all the parents, giving them the normal spiel, and my assistant was getting the 8 and unders rolling. So I had my meeting, and then the parents actually got to come out onto deck with me, which is great because in swimming we do so much like parents stay away, like parents can't be on deck. And what I really want to achieve is no, bring them in. I told the parents during the meeting, like, if your kid was to join soccer, you would go in the backyard and kick a soccer ball with them. If they were to join tennis, you'd probably pick up a tennis racket and go to the tennis court. But if your kid picks up swimming, it's not as easy as I'm just going to hop in the water and we're going to start swimming breaststroke. Like, that's not every parent came from a swimming background, right? So how can we bring them into the sport so they feel like part of it? Because if we don't, then otherwise all they have is times, and then we get, oh, the parents are worried about best times, or they're always talking to their kids about dropping time because that's the only thing that they have. They don't have another connection with them. So, anyways, going on a tangent, but on the showcase, they came down onto deck and the kids had to demonstrate the skills that we've been working on for the first 5 weeks of the season. And we told the parents, okay, the kids are all going to do butterfly. And then kids, like, how many hands do we touch with? How do we kick? And they're all there with their cameras, and the kids are swimming a 25 butterfly. And it also put pressure because, right, there's 40 parents on the side of the deck. And they're not up in the stands where you can kind of like ignore them. They're all right there. Everybody's got a camera out. And now I have to swim a 25 butterfly in front of them. But it also, it's like they see their parent and they're like, oh, heck yeah, watch what I'm doing. So that was fantastic. So showcase, mock meet, showcase. Um, I also tell the parents that, for instance, with butterfly, if you are a new swimmer, I'm not going to put you in butterfly at the first meet, right? I don't, unless you're one of those kids that's okay belly flopping off the block. We'll probably save that for the next meet. Um, just last night I got an email literally about an 8 and under doing butterfly. It's her first swim meet this weekend. And mom said she feels really good about everything, but she's not certain about butterfly. I put her in 225s one day and 225s the next day. And I just wrote back and I said, say no more. She's not in butterfly. Let's do the other events. Let's get some confidence under our belt. Let's do some more butterfly in practice and we'll try again at the next meet. So, I mean, this doesn't have to be like square peg, round hole. Like these kids are 8. They have forever to do butterfly. It's not like we're trying to, teach a 12-year-old the confidence to do a 200 butterfly. That you got to come at probably from a different angle. But there's a lot of things that you can do in practice before getting to that. And it's also on the coach to be flexible and say, I understand that it's scary. And maybe let's just leave you in it. And once we get to the swim meet, if you feel like doing it, we'll do it. And if not, then we'll watch your teammates do it and we'll try again at the next meet. So
I love that. I love that. And I love that you're not afraid to say to those kids who maybe aren't afraid to also belly flop, all right, you want to do some butterfly, let's go.
yeah,
It's great.
I don't care if you get DQ'd. I mean, listen, you're going to go home and you're going to go out to lunch with your parents. I'm going to go home to my kids. Like, life's going to move on.
Absolutely. So here we are, Mackenzie. We're looking at a potential week for your 8 and under group. What are some of the things that you plan for the week from a skills standpoint, things that you want to see these athletes working on a weekly basis?
I have 4 days a week of 8 and under practice, and most of the kids are going to come 2 to 3 days of that. So, and there's a handful, I've got several 6-year-olds that we come once a week, and that's perfect. So what I'm doing and some of them are routine. Some come Tuesday, Thursday. Sometimes they come when mom can bring them or the nanny can bring them or whatever. So each week I take a look at, I've got 4 days. I've got 4 strokes. We're getting every stroke throughout the week. But what we aren't doing is always doing butterfly on Monday, always doing backstroke, because if those are kids that only come on Tuesday, Thursday, I don't want them to be amazing backstroke and freestylers. Like, they got to get a short axis day in there. So we mix up the stroke, but ideally we're taking on a stroke a day. If there's wiggle room, like this week, we have a swim meet coming up, and we've had an inner squad, but I'm going to call this like our first meet. And we have a lot of parents, again, they don't necessarily know what to look for. And I haven't like fully converted them to really paying attention to the stroke. So they see the dive and they're like, my kid can't dive. That's what they see. And so we've been doing a lot of dives in practice to also lead to conversations, up in the bleachers, out in the hallway, out in the parking lot. Like, we're working on them. You got to give it time. It's not going to happen overnight. So trying to fit in dives. eventually moving to working on flip turns. Most of the 8 and unders are doing 25s, but I have an 8 and under group that the kids are it's our second 8 and under group, and they're doing 50s. They can do 100 IM, they can do 100 freestyle. So we can't neglect those kids. They have a 15-minute window of practice that's after the beginning 8 and unders get out. So once we get out those kids that we're just trying to get legal, I've got 15 minutes to work with, dare I say, the elite 8 and unders. And they're going to have an opportunity to do more stroke count into the wall, transition turns, all those things. That would be way over a lot of the other groups' head. I also look at a lot of kick. So we are a huge, huge kicking team. You got to kick. You got to kick to be good. You can't develop it. I mean, I don't think that you can develop a strong kicker later in life. You can deal with a weakness and improve it. But if you really want those kids to be in 11, 12 and be kicking hundreds on 145 on repeat, you have to do your work. You have to put in the time when they're 10 and under. So, and some of the 6, 7-year-olds, I'm just trying to get them to hold the board the right way, for goodness sakes. I mean, yesterday I had this sweet little boy who just constantly is like, one hand on the board, one hand over here, eyes down, up, down. And I said, I'm going to teach you a trick. You can go faster if you take your goggles and you put them up here. And he goes, why? I said, because then you have to look forward and you'll hold your head really still so that water doesn't get in your eyes. And he's like, really? So he puts them up, and all of a sudden he's holding the board and looking forward because he's realizing, I don't want all that water in my eyes. Like, this is annoying. So he just kicked straight across the pool. So kick is a huge thing. We kick with boards every day. We start with 425s kick every day, no matter what. And we kick with a board, we kick without a board, we kick underwater, over water, on our side, with fins, without fins, all different speeds. Every bit of like speed change, which it sounds crazy to think about, like 8 and unders and speed change. Like, am I really teaching 8 and unders to descend and build? Kind of. I'm needing them to know those words, and I'm needing them to understand that they're going from one speed to another speed. And if that's all they get, that's fine. So doing a lot of things to using kick for those learning opportunities so that when they do move to the 9 and 10 group, they can do it swim, because it's going to be a lot easier to learn how to build kick. Because sometimes if they're swimming, they're either swimming or they're not swimming. There's not a lot of in between. So using kick. So just looking at strokes, sorry to get back to your wrapping up that answer. I mean, alternating strokes, making kick a huge piece of the puzzle. And as the season goes on, using opportunities where maybe it's like low attendance or the kids are just really focused that day to start to get into flip turns. Oh, you're muted, Mike.
That we will have to edit.
Yeah, that's all right.
I love how your approach is very much meet them in their space and then work with what's in front of you. And if you see an opportunity to maybe focus on something, you do that. That's great. And I think a lot of young coaches need to start thinking about who they have at practice on any given day, because I love that you have 4 days a week. When we were at Victor, we were probably same. So 4 days a week, we probably had kids going maybe 2, maybe 3 times a week, which is great at that age, right? We don't want to overwhelm them. And,
Right.
I think just using those opportunities where maybe you have a lighter night, you can kind of focus in more on turns where the instruction is a little bit simpler. And then the other thing that I wanted to ask you, Mackenzie, is how does Coach Novell with the 8 and under group incorporate play?
That you're asking me that because that's my favorite thing. Uh, Play is like 90% of this group. So all those things that I just talked about with stroke and kick, those all can be turned into, fun opportunities in games. Most recently, we have a skill that we're trying to teach the 8 and unders, which I'm not sure if a lot of people are going to resonate with this, but we're actually we have these like birdies that's like a bouncy ball with the feathers. And the senior kids, they use them in dry land to play. We play in every group, top to bottom. So those big kids, you see those 17-year-old boys, they're like, they've been doing years of dry land. They're just like jacked, super strong, super fit. And they're out there playing with these birdies. And what they do is they get in a circle and they hit the birdie up, and they have to do a certain amount of dry land movements after they hit it. So it's just a way to do like some dry land warm up. And I thought, little kids love this. They can swat something around up in the air. Well, it turns out they can't. It was way too much hand-eye coordination for these little kids. So my assistant and I go, okay, we got to rein this in. So yesterday we did all of dry land, and everybody had one little ball. And every dry land movement we did, they had to either hold the ball, toss the ball, throw it back and forth, toss it to somebody. So just layering those skills, because, in swimming, we're like, streamline, then kick. Okay, now make sure you're exhaling before you breathe. And then we're going to do 325s. And they're like, whoa, 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 what? It's a lot of information that we're giving them. And even when you try to make it simple, it's hard. They're 8. Some of these kids are in kindergarten, right? They're learning the alphabet. So when we toss in skills that we think are just like, we can rattle them off in our sleep, it is not that way for these sweet little kids. So we started yesterday. So that's a way. I mean, nobody would ever think like doing dry land with a ball would be a game. But you know what? It is. It helps them layer that complexity of doing skills, doing multiple things at once. And eventually we're going to be able to turn those skills into hitting a birdie and doing dry land in it. So that's one thing in dry land. We do a lot of relays. We do a lot of games that are, you know, streamlining. So for instance, we'll streamline floating on our back, who can hold the tightest streamline and keep their whole body, right at the surface. And to us, we're like, that's not really a game. That's just telling them to streamline on their back, but if you sell it as a game and then you sell it as if you win, you get to pick the kick for the 425s tomorrow, boom, it's a game. So you can really turn any set into that. I think that you have to like channel your inner child, and you have to think really simple. The more simple, the better. And something just yesterday was like, okay, we're going to put fins on, and the kids were really scattered yesterday. So I should say that part. They were scattered. We had about 38 and unders in 4 or 5 lanes. It was loud. There's diving practice, there's senior kids, there's 11, 12 dry land, and there's middle schoolers in the pool. Lot going on, very scattered. And, one kid's cold, one kid's goggles fall off, somebody's fins under the bulkhead, somebody's got to go to the bathroom, somebody's got a bloody nose. Okay, all these things are going on.
That is so true. You just painted a picture of every 10 and under workout in the United States.
Oh, it's brutal. And then yeah, half the kids are underwater, right? Like asking if they can get the fin under the bulkhead. So I'm like, hey, you have 5 seconds to finish getting your fins on, get your kickboard, and get in ready position. So ready position meaning one hand on the board, one hand on the wall, feet up on the wall. Everybody needs to be on the wall. And of course, I'm going to count slow for 5 seconds. But I said, if everybody can do this, I knew I had some licorice saved over from like a different reward thing we had done last week. I said, you guys can finish the licorice from last week, and boom, just like that. And again, like to me, that's just an attention grabber, but to them, they're like, challenge accepted,
Right.
and they were like laughing and giggling, move over. And they're yelling, get over here, get on the wall. So again, like not everything has to be a game in the sense of like, this is how you play. Sometimes it's who can do this the fastest. Here's the reward. That can be a game too.
I love that stuff. And you intellectualize the moment where they realize, oh, there's rewards in play. Okay, now I'm on point.
Very reward driven, 10 and under,
Absolutely. Yeah.
very
And that's,
reward driven.
I think as educators, teachers and coaches, a lot of times we try to shy away from that, right? Because we've been taught so much and reward systems, do they really work? They
Yeah,
do. They work.
they
Uh,
totally do.
yeah, and that's okay. That can help you organize a practice. It can help you accomplish a goal. Um,
Well, and one thing just to like piggyback on that is think of some of these kids, a lot of these kids are in other sports, right? So when they go to soccer, what does soccer look like to them? Soccer's once a week, and sometimes you're practicing and then you just stay and you do a game. So it's easy, it's accessible. People bring snacks. You get to wear cool gear, and that's like a soccer practice. And so we're competing with that. So this like old way of like, you know, when kids are like, what do I get? And you're like, oh, the pride of knowing you did it. It's like, that doesn't mean anything. Like, don't fool yourself. The kids don't like it. You don't even like it. Like, let them have a reward. So, um, yeah, I mean, every week there is something that my kids in swimming get because I'm competing with other sports. Like I'm trying to sell them, and it doesn't have to be expensive. I brought this little certificate here. I don't know if you can see it,
love
but
it.
this is a piece of paper, and I gave them to the kids, and it was like Christmas morning.
Love
This
it.
was this was $1 for however many. So reward systems don't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be a long drawn out process. But man, you got to sell those kids on swimming because it's not the little kids don't like the grind. They're not teenagers. They're not, when I was coaching at CSU, Division 1 women, there's some of those there's some of those women that they love swimming because they love the grind. Like I love to train. And that's great, but I'm going to tell you right now there is no 10 and under that loves to train. So we got to teach them that, but you got to sell them first.
There are 10 and unders that love to go to practice because of all the things that you just mentioned.
Yes, true. Very true.
And so I heard you mentioned a little dry land. How long are your workouts in totality?
With so we with our eight, I'll say 8 and under, then I'll tell you what 9 and 10 looks like. Our 8 and under group that I work with is 2 groups. We practice at the same time. So there's one group called Nova, which you essentially just have to make it across the pool without crying to be in that group. The next group is Fireball, and that means that you can do 4 legal strokes. So right now I've got 30 to 33 kids on the roster for Nova, and I've got about 10 to 12 in Fireball. So on any given day, I'm getting about like 30, give or take, depending on what's going on in everybody's lives. So we all practice at the same time. We start at 4:15. That's the earliest we can get them there after school. Our schools kind of go late here. So 4:15, we start dry land and we do 15 minutes of dry land with our 8 and unders. At 4:30, we get in, and Nova and Fireball, we're all in the water together from 4:30 to 5:15. So we have 45 minutes of teaching those kids who only had to make it across the pool couple times without crying. We got 45 minutes to keep those little bodies moving, warm, learning, having fun. Um, and honestly, keeping warm that's a big one. They can't move fast. The water is cold. That's a separate challenge. Then Nova gets out, and 15 minutes we have Fireball, which is those kids that we have an opportunity to do more, exposing them to reading the clock, doing intervals. Um, we're going to do 650s kick on a minute. You get to wear your fins, and they can do it, and it's starting to teach them descend, one easy, one medium, one fast, one baby bear, one mama bear, one papa bear.
Love
So 45 minutes to an hour, and then the 9 and 10-year-olds, they're going to be more like in the hour to hour and 15-minute range. And they also do 15 minutes of dry land. We don't increase the dry land till they become 11 and 12. So 15 minutes essentially for 10 and unders. And it's every day. We start dry land every day. And then it bumps up to 30 minutes when you're kind of like more middle school age. And then when you get into high school age, we have some practices that are even just dry land.
Sure.
So yeah, dry land's a huge piece of the puzzle. So it's important that we use that 15 minutes, and it goes by so fast. Like if you're really trying to teach those kids something in 15 minutes, it's a challenge, but most of the challenge comes not in teaching, but in wrangling, because they're straight from school. So they're real squirmy. So that's a huge, that starting the day like that is both great and a challenge. Sometimes I wish I could just dunk them in the pool and be like, let's go.
I love it. I love it. And Coach Mackenzie, just to wrap things up here, what are you most excited about for our sport moving forward?
I'm most excited to see how we can make swimming more fun and more like an easier barrier to entry. Like my husband and I talk about it all the time. Like we talk to people in the community who are like, "Oh, you guys coach it fast. It's pretty serious." It's like, no, not really. No. And it's like, oh, swimming, early mornings, long swim meets. A lot of people, even people who don't have a background in swimming, but especially people who do, because they grew up in a time that it was quite a lot. And I just think that we've got to like modernize swimming top to bottom. So how we coach the kids, how we coach the parents, how we run practice, how we run swim meets. People don't love being at, I mean, this is not earth-shattering news to anybody. Nobody loves being at a swim meet, 6 sessions, prelims, finals, Friday to Sunday. Because then guess what? Like the kids have to go back to school and the parents have to go to work at 8 a.m. And yeah, coaches have to go back to work on Monday, but like there's probably also a little bit of give, right? Because you work from home during the day, right? So you get to be home and kind of get your bearings, but those other families, man, they're back in it. It's like punch you in the face Monday morning after 6 sessions indoor prelim final.
And if you
Uh,
have two kids in separate age brackets, then it's a
yeah, you're
lifestyle.
screwed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just think that it's on us to find a way to make it more attainable, less intimidating, and a lot of that I really truly feel like is going to come from 2 things: making it fun for the kid, making it accessible for the parent. Um, I have a little boy, he's 5 years old. His name is Bob. He loves riding bikes. He's a bike fiend. So we took him to a BMX bike course. He loved it. He said he wants to race. I said, "Great, let's do this." I take him to I read, they post it. They don't even have a website, right? They post it on social media. We're racing Saturday at 2. Great. We go. I get there, I'm like, okay, what is this all about? I'm like, I'm the new parent, right? I know nothing. And she says, okay, well, XYZ, these are the things. Here's the QR code. Essentially, you show up, you scan a QR code, you Venmo them $15. They get on the computer, they put your kid's name in, and he has to, it's like USA Swimming, there's USA BMX. So he has a number. I say, okay, Bob's here. Type, type, type. There's an hour that you can show up at this bike course and sign up. You do not have to sign up before. You show up the day of. You have an hour to show up. At 2:00, signups close. At 2:05, they post essentially a heat sheet. At 2:10, they start racing. And at 3, it's over.
Amazing.
And it's like, you can go if it works. And there's been times where I wanted to go, and the other children in my life did not make that possible. So we didn't go, but I wasn't already invested. And it was like rapid fire. He raced 3 times. It didn't matter if he won, he didn't like it wasn't an eliminator. You raced 3 times. So, like, how can we make swimming like that? You know, we're starting a project right now. We're going to race in a couple weeks on a Friday where we don't have Friday practice. It's an hour to sign up. You're going to come. We've modeled it straight after this. You're going to scan a QR code. We'll put touchpads in. It's not a sanctioned meet. It's just an opportunity for the kids to come race. And we've got a system where everybody's going to race 3 times. There's no like 8 and under, 9 and 10. It's like these kids, these kids, these kids. And we'll see how it goes. But I mean, I just think it's on us as professional coaches to reevaluate what has been done and what's also going on in other sports. Like, what can we take from some other sports and just modernize this entire process of swimming?
Incredible. Like, what an idea. And we'll look forward to Fort Collins hosting that first meet.
Yeah, I know, right? We'll see. We'll see.
Well, Mackenzie, thank you so much for your time. I know this episode is going to resonate with so many coaches out there. We appreciate your passion and joy for our sport. Certainly Mike's as well. And we wish you guys all the best of luck this season. And I'm rooting for that meet to be a big success because I would like to see some other teams pilot things like this.
Yeah, let's do it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. And how can people get in touch with you if they have questions?
So if you go, you can email me. I live on email every chance I get. If you go on our website, Fort Collins Area Swim Team, check out the coaches tab. You can just click my name. It's Mackenzie at fortcollinsareaswimteam.org. And shoot me an email. I'd love to talk. I've got some email threads going on with some other teams, and I am always excited to talk about new ideas and kind of learn from what you guys are doing out there. And we're just going to all have to be in this together. Nobody's going to be able to pilot this on their own. So the communication is open. Let's exchange some ideas.
Appreciate it, Mackenzie. Thank you.
Thank you.